They never expected your absence to hit this hard. They thought they'd be fine, unbothered, maybe even better off without you. But life doesn't work like the stories people tell themselves to sleep better at night. Because when someone who held your chaos, calmed your storms, and stood by your worst leaves, not with rage, but with peace, it doesn't echo. It haunts. It doesn't just sting. It slowly, painfully destroys the illusion they were trying so hard to maintain. And that's what they're feeling now, your absence crawling under their skin, rewriting every lie they once told themselves about you. Hey, folks, imagine this. You've been the emotional lighthouse during their storm. You were the steady flame in their blackout. But they grew so used to that light, they forgot it wasn't owed to them. They thought it came from a battery, something replaceable. They never understood the fire came from your soul and that it was burning out. So when you finally walked away, it wasn't just light that disappeared. It was their direction, their warmth, their safety. And now they're stumbling in darkness, reaching out for the very glow they used to mock. Let's be real. Most people don't see value when it's present. They see it when it's gone. That's the sickness of emotional entitlement. When you were available, consistent, showing up with your love, loyalty and patience, they thought it meant they were special. They thought they were the prize, but now that you're gone, they're learning the truth the hard way. Your presence was the blessing, not a convenience. They're not suffering because you hurt them. They're suffering because you stopped saving them. You stopped shrinking so they could feel tall. You stopped explaining yourself just to maintain peace they kept disturbing, and now they sit alone with the very chaos you used to absorb. That silence, it's not empty, it's a mirror that shows them exactly who they are without your calming energy. And my friends, it's not pretty. It's not the hero story they painted in their head. It's raw, it's regret, and it's real. And the funniest part? They thought they won. They thought ignoring you, discarding you, disrespecting your effort gave them the upper hand. But guess what? That wasn't a victory. That was self-sabotage disguised as power. And now that time has passed, that disguise is slipping. Your absence is exposing what your love once covered. They're unraveling, not because you cursed them, but because you stopped carrying them. So if you've ever questioned your worth because someone acted like losing you meant nothing, let this remind you, you are not replaceable. You are not just another chapter. You were the plot twist, the one that gave their story meaning, and now the story has fallen apart. They're flipping through empty pages trying to find your voice again, but it's too late, because you're not coming back to rescue someone who watched you drown and called it drama. You didn't disappear, you elevated, you chose peace. And that, my friends, is the ultimate flex. So do not regret the silence. Own it, wear it like armor, because your absence isn't just distance. It's a declaration. A declaration that you are no longer emotionally available to those who couldn't recognize your value when they had it. So write this in the comments right now. My absence has power. Let them feel it. Let the world see it. Let you believe it. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because we're just getting started. Stay with me. This next part will cut even deeper. Number 1. They didn't lose you. They lost the version of themselves that existed because of you. When the tree that shaded you is cut down, only then do you feel the heat you once took for granted. They thought they lost you, but what they actually lost was something far more devastating. The version of themselves that only existed because you were in their life. The version of them that felt more stable, more grounded, more capable, because you were holding up the parts of them they couldn't hold on their own. They thought your presence was just background noise, something that ran in the distance like a soft hum. But now that the music stopped, the silence is roaring, and that silence is destroying them. Imagine this, my friends. They were like a fragile house propped up by invisible beams. You were the beams. They didn't see them, didn't acknowledge them, but they leaned on them every single day. And then one day, the beams vanished. And suddenly, the whole structure is collapsing, and they're sitting in the rubble asking, "What happened?" What happened is you left. And they can't even process that truth fully because their pride is choking them too hard to say it out loud. Right now, they're probably replaying moments in their head, moments where you smiled through disappointment, where you stayed calm while they were losing control, where you believed in them when they couldn't even look in the mirror, and they're wondering, how did I not see it? How did I let that go? But that's the thing about emotional blindness. It never feels like blindness until the light is gone. Let's break the illusion, folks. They didn't nurture the version of themselves you brought to life. They didn't protect it. They fed their ego instead. They chased attention. They confused control for strength. They thought they were growing without realizing it was you who gave them the soil to grow in. And now that soil is gone. They're trying to plant new seeds in concrete. They're trying to feel whole in the absence of someone who was quietly piecing them together all along. And it's not working. Nothing sticks. Nothing feels right. And now the questions keep them awake. Was I really that dependent? Did I need them that much? And the answer is yes. Yes, they did. Not because they were weak, but because they were never taught how to be emotionally accountable. They mistook your presence for emotional background music, but you were actually the conductor. You were the one keeping their chaos from spiraling, and they didn't notice until you stopped. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Especially when the truth was wrapped in your kindness, your patience, your loyalty, that version of them that laughed more, dreamed more, felt more stable. It was made possible because you showed up. Because you carried emotional weight they never acknowledged. And now they're in emotional freefall, looking for someone to blame, looking for you. But you're gone, and they know deep down they're not losing their mind. They're losing the version of themselves that felt real because of you. And here's the fear crawling in their spine. They're afraid they'll never get that version back, because they know, deep down, that version doesn't come back without you. Because they haven't done the work, they haven't healed, they haven't grown. They're still waiting for someone else to come fix the mess they refuse to clean up, and that realization is starting to sink in. They look in the mirror and see someone unfamiliar, not because they've changed, but because you're not there reflecting their better self back to them. You were the mirror that made them look beautiful in their brokenness. You made them feel seen, understood, forgiven. And now they're facing their raw reflection, and it's terrifying, because there's no you to soften the glare. Let me tell you something, my friends. You were never a background character. You were the entire plot twist. You brought light into rooms they didn't know were dark. You brought clarity where there was confusion. And when you left, the darkness didn't just return, it intensified, because now it carries the burden of knowing what it's like to have someone like you and destroy it. It's easy to mock someone who's always there, easy to act indifferent when someone shows up, no matter how many times they're hurt. But that consistency, that unwavering presence, that was your superpower. And now that it's gone, it's tearing their identity apart from the inside, not because you're punishing them, but because the illusion they built is finally collapsing. They see who they are without you, and they don't like what they see. And let's be honest, they thought you'd never leave. They thought they had time, that you'd always explain, always forgive, always hold space. But you didn't leave to get revenge. You left because you outgrew the pain. You left because your peace finally mattered more than their potential. And that is what's killing them. Not your anger, not your absence, but your ability to move on without looking back. So don't you dare second-guess your worth. Don't you dare think they're doing fine just because they're not showing it. People suffer quietly when they lose something real. Pride may silence their confession, but it can't silence their regret. And you, my friends, were the rare one, the soul that touched theirs without needing anything in return. You were the grounding wire in a system full of sparks, and they thought they could remove it and still stay stable. Now they're feeling the shock. And maybe they'll never say it. Maybe they'll never apologize. But the absence, it speaks for you. It screams your value. It reminds them every single day of who you were, and every day they wake up without that version of themselves, the one you brought to life, they will feel the burn. So if this hit you deep, write it in the comments. I was the light. Let the world see it. Let them feel it. Show yourself. Because it's time we stop apologizing for being the anchor in someone else's storm. You were the anchor, and now that you're gone, they're drifting. And we're just getting started. Stay with me. What's coming next will expose even more. Number 2, your silence is louder than their pride can silence. It's not your voice they miss. It's the peace it brought. They'll never admit it. Not in a message, not in a phone call, not even to themselves in the dark. But your silence, it's eating them alive. It echoes louder than any argument. It whispers truths they've tried to bury beneath pride and performance. And the worst part, they can't escape it. Because your silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of everything they took for granted, now amplified by the void. They used to see your presence as default, something that just existed in the background, like the hum of an engine on a long drive, until the car stopped. Now they realize you were the one driving. You were the reason they were even moving forward. And without your voice, without your energy guiding, soothing, grounding, they're lost. But they'll never say it. Pride is a tightrope, my friends. And they're walking it barefoot, bleeding silently, pretending everything's fine while every step reminds them of you. They once used silence as a weapon. Remember that? Those cold stares, unanswered texts, disappearing acts, all strategic, all meant to control you, to make you chase. But now the silence is in your hands. And it's different, because your silence isn't meant to punish. It's meant to protect. It's calm, it's final, it's sacred, and it terrifies them, because this time they know there's no performance behind it. This time they know it's real. And here's where it gets even harder for them. You're not angry. You're not trying to get their attention. You're not crying, begging, posting indirect quotes, hoping they notice. You're just still, quiet, at peace. And that stillness screams louder than any accusation ever could, because it tells them you're done, truly done. And that shakes their identity, because for so long they built themselves on the assumption that you would always be there. But you're not. You stopped responding. You stopped explaining. You stopped showing up for someone who never met you halfway. And that, my friends, is the moment the power shifted. The day you stopped giving them emotional access, their ego began to starve. Their pride, which once felt so tall, began to feel fragile, because it fed off your reactions, off your need to fix, to explain, to hold on. And now, there's nothing left to feed on, just silence. You see, your silence exposes them. It removes the cover story they told the world. It shows how much they were depending on your emotional labor while pretending they were fine without it. They told people you were too much, too sensitive, too intense, but now they sit with themselves and feel too empty, too anxious, too lost. And that truth burns. They scroll through your old messages now, the ones they ignored. They reread your words, looking for meaning in places they once dismissed. They remember your voice, not in anger, but in comfort. That voice that brought stability, that presence that made their world feel less chaotic. And they feel the loss like a hunger. But it's a hunger they can't satisfy because the kitchen is closed and they locked the door themselves. Let's get real for a second. People don't regret losing you the moment you walk away. No. At first, they feel free, empowered even. They confuse detachment with dominance. They tell themselves, I'm better off. But time is a ruthless teacher because time with you felt easy, real, safe, and time without you feels like quicksand, slow, suffocating, silent. That's the power of your absence. It doesn't punch them in the face. It drips, it erodes, and then it crashes. And what makes it worse, what tears at them the most, is that you're glowing now. You're lighter. You're focused. You're laughing without faking it. You're showing up for yourself in ways you used to show up for them. And they see it. Even if they never say a word, trust me, they see it, and it kills them inside. Because deep down, they thought you would fall apart without them. But now they're realizing they were the one being held together by you. That's the irony. They saw themselves as the strong one, the independent one. But it was your emotional strength that carried both of you. It was your forgiveness that softened the blows. It was your consistency that made the relationship feel real. And now that you're silent, they feel the weight they used to offload on you, and they can't carry it alone. So, if you're out there questioning whether your silence means anything, this is your reminder. It means everything. You've reclaimed your peace. You've cut off the emotional oxygen supply to someone who kept breathing while drowning you. And now they're gasping. But you're not responsible for their breath anymore. That's the hard truth. And it's also your freedom. So write this in the comments. My silence is sacred. Let them wonder. Let them feel it. Let the world know that your peace isn't up for negotiation anymore. You gave your voice to someone who never listened. Now your silence will teach what your words never could. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're pulling the curtain all the way back. You'll see how the very person who thought they were discarding weakness ended up discarding the only thing that was keeping them sane. And trust me, they feel it every day. Number 3. They thought they discarded you. What they really did was detonate their own foundation. You don't lose someone like you and stay the same. You lose yourself in the process. They thought they made a clean cut. They thought walking away from you was just another decision, like switching apps or closing a door. Simple, final, easy. That's what ego does. It wraps devastation in false power. It tells people that cutting off a rare soul is strength, that losing loyalty is a flex, that walking away from someone who stood by them in storms is evolution. But the truth comes later. It comes quietly, and it hits hard, because they didn't discard a mistake. They discarded the miracle. They didn't let go of a burden. They let go of their balance. And now, piece by piece, the structure they were standing on is crumbling beneath them, because what they didn't realize was that you were the foundation. You see, people only recognize structure when it's gone. As long as the walls are standing and the roof is solid, they never question what's holding it up. They walk through life thinking the stability is just there. But you were the beam, the pillar, the core, the emotional architecture they built their life around without even realizing it. Until the day you walked, not out of hate, not out of revenge, but because you couldn't keep holding up something that was breaking you. And that's when their illusion detonated. Imagine a house built on a cliff, beautiful from the outside, but unstable, and you, my friend, were the ledge, the quiet strength beneath it all. But they kept stomping, ignoring the cracks, testing your limits. And now the entire thing is sliding off the edge, and they're blaming gravity. But it wasn't gravity that failed them. It was gratitude. It was humility. It was their own refusal to see what was keeping them grounded. And now the collapse has started. Not all at once, of course. That would be too easy. No, this kind of collapse happens slowly. It's emotional erosion. First, they lose the little things. Your good morning texts, your voice of reason, your energy that once calmed their internal chaos. Then the silence stretches longer. The laughter fades, the memories sharpen, until one day they look around and realize they're surrounded by wreckage, and there's no one left to clean it up. Because you're not coming back. Not this time. They played with fire and thought you'd always be fireproof. But all they did was burn the bridge. And now they stand on one side, confused, isolated, hurting, and the other side, that's you, flourishing, quiet, unreachable. And what do they do when they see you glowing? When they realize that the person they tried to minimize was actually maximizing their life the entire time? They try to find replacements. They search for someone to fill the gap. But replacements don't carry your depth. They don't come with your loyalty, your insight, your emotional patience. They're surface level, and it becomes obvious, painfully obvious, that the problem was never you. The problem was how they handled gold like it was dust. Let's be real. This is the part where their pride starts to bend, not break, not yet. But it bends. They replay the things they said, the dismissive comments, the eye rolls when you needed to be heard, the times you cried and they made it about them, the moments you begged for clarity and they gave you confusion. And now those moments hit different, because now they know they weren't strong when they walked away. They were foolish. They weren't evolving. They were unraveling. And now, without you, that unraveling is accelerating. It's a hard pill to swallow, to realize you were the chaos all along, that the one person who tried to help you see, grow, heal was the same person you pushed out of your life. And that's what they're dealing with now. The mirror, the silence, the consequences, and no amount of denial can stop the truth from creeping in. They lost something real, and now they're left with what's fake. Shiny maybe, but hollow. So my friends, let this be your reminder. You weren't discarded. You were released. You were released from being someone's emotional scaffolding, from carrying a weight that was never yours to hold, from trying to love someone who made a sport out of hurting you and your silence now. It's not revenge. It's clarity. It's freedom. And it's proof. Proof that you were never too much, never too sensitive, never too intense. You were simply too real for someone who wasn't ready to face their own emotional bankruptcy. And now they're bankrupt. They're emotionally bankrupt, spiritually overdrawn, because they spent all your grace like it would never run out. And it did. So write this in the comments. I was the foundation. Say it loud, say it clear. Let the world know that your presence was power, that your love was architecture, that your silence is the proof that they didn't just lose someone. They lost the only thing that was holding their emotional house together. Stay with me, because what's coming next? It's going to rip the mask off the illusion they tried to create. And trust me, they know they messed up, even if they never say it. Especially because they'll never say it. Number 4. The person who once held their chaos is no longer there, and the storm is back. They didn't lose peace when you left. They lost the person who created it from nothing every single time they tried to destroy it. They thought you were just a calm person. They thought your peace was something you carried around naturally, like a personality trait. They never understood that your calm was crafted, built from sleepless nights, held together by self-control, forged through moments when you wanted to scream but chose to soothe instead. You didn't just bring peace, you fought for it, and now that you're gone, the storm they kept hidden behind your stillness is starting to roar again, because the person who used to hold their chaos isn't holding it anymore. See, it's easy to think you're stable when someone else is absorbing all your instability. It's easy to believe you've got everything under control when someone else is managing your mess behind the scenes. That's what you did, my friend. You were the quiet storm manager, the emotional anchor, the soft landing for every one of their explosive reactions. And they thought that came free, that you existed just to keep them from falling apart, until you were no longer there. And now, the storm is back, their own storm, the one you used to guard them from, the one you took hits from without ever complaining. It's crashing down on them, loud, messy, unforgiving, because it turns out you weren't the problem. You were the protection from the problem. You were the only thing between them and their own emotional collapse. They never realized that your presence was the pause button. You calmed them down when they were spiraling. You grounded them when they were reckless. You gave reason when they were drowning in delusion. You gave warmth in moments they didn't even deserve it. And now they're sitting in the middle of a storm that you used to tame, and it's terrifying, because for the first time, they're feeling the full weight of their own emotional weather. No one's softening the edges. No one's interpreting their confusion. No one's standing in front of their chaos and saying, "It's okay, I've got you." They've got themselves now, and it's not going well. Here's the part that burns them most. They thought walking away from you would make life lighter, simpler, freer, that maybe without you always talking about emotions and bringing up problems and making things deep, they'd be happier. But what they found instead was noise, static, emptiness, because the new people, they don't understand them. They don't want to understand them. They're not invested in calming the storm. They're running from it. And suddenly they're realizing that depth is not a burden. It's a blessing, and they threw it away. They're learning, too late, that what you brought into their life wasn't convenience. It was containment. You were the only person who could hold space for their chaos without being destroyed by it. You were the emotional firewall. And now, the whole system's overheating, the meltdown has started, and they're alone in it. And let's not forget this. While they're breaking under their own emotional weight, you're rising, quietly, slowly, powerfully. You're not bitter, you're just better. And that contrast is killing them, because they expected you to fall apart. They expected your world to collapse like theirs is doing now. But you're glowing, you're peaceful, you're moving through life with the kind of emotional balance they always claimed to have, but never did. That's the punishment. Not your silence, not your absence, but your evolution. And maybe they try to pretend, maybe they post fake smiles, maybe they flirt with shallow replacements, but none of it works. Because when the storm hits, and trust me, it always hits, those people vanish. They don't stay up late on the phone. They don't decode the silence. They don't reach into their soul and try to understand the pain, because they can't. Only you could. And now you're gone. That's when the realization starts to scream. You were the one who carried their outbursts like secrets, who diffused the tension before it exploded, who forgave things that others would have walked away from immediately. And now they miss that. Not because they loved you well, but because they used you deeply. They emotionally leaned on you while telling themselves they were standing tall. But without you, they're falling. So let this be a reminder. You were never weak for helping, never too much for feeling deeply, never wrong for staying a little longer. What you gave was strength, and what they lost was shelter. You didn't abandon them. You simply stopped shielding them from the storm they refused to acknowledge. And now they're soaking in it, cold, shivering, and alone. So write this in the comments right now. I was there calm. Let them read it. Let them feel it. Let yourself remember that your presence was never ordinary. It was a gift. And now that it's gone, the storm has returned. Because the calm didn't come from inside them. It came from you. And you've taken it with you. Stay with me, my friends, because next, Oh, next we get into the ghost that haunts them even when the world thinks they've moved on. The memory of you, the echo of what they lost, and the regret that refuses to leave. You ready? Let's go deeper. Number 5. Their memory of you is the ghost that won't leave. You don't haunt them because you hurt them. You haunt them because you healed them, and now the medicine is gone. They can't outrun it. Not in the daylight, not in the quiet hours of the night, not in the arms of someone new, not in the noise they drown themselves in, because you're still there, not physically, not in presence, but in memory. And that memory? It's not just lingering, it's haunting. You became the ghost they can't shake, the quiet echo in every peaceful moment that now feels incomplete. The reminder that they had something rare, something real, and they let it slip through their fingers, thinking it was just a phase, a person, a moment. But it wasn't. It was home. You see, my friends, people often don't miss you for the reasons you think. It's not always about the way you looked or the way you laughed. It's about the way you made them feel safe in their own chaos, the way your voice lowered their anxiety, the way your presence gave them emotional space to exist without judgment. And now that you're gone, every attempt at peace feels artificial. Every new connection feels like a copy, a knockoff, a dull echo of the real thing, you. They wake up and reach for something they can't name. They go through their day distracted, irritated, restless. They can't figure out what's wrong. But you know what it is. It's you. It's the energy you brought that wrapped itself around their life like a quiet force field. Now that energy is missing and they feel it, in their mood swings, in their short temper, in the way everything feels a little more difficult, a little less joyful. That's what happens when you lose your anchor. And when the world finally gets quiet, when the parties stop, when the phone's dry, when the fake smiles fade, they hear you again. Not in words, but in absence. They remember that conversation at 2 a.m. when you told them you believed in them. They remember the way you hugged them when they didn't even have to ask. They remember the look in your eyes when they lied, and how you forgave them anyway. And those memories hit different now, because back then, they were just moments. Now they're unreachable. They scroll past old photos, pretending not to feel. They come across your name in group chats they never cleaned up. They reread old texts, not because they miss the words, but because they miss the way it felt to be on the receiving end of someone who loved without agenda, someone who didn't demand perfection, but offered peace instead. That's rare, and that's why you haunt them. The ghost of you doesn't come with chains or screams. It comes with softness, with weight, with a heaviness that wraps around their chest every time they remember what they lost. You were the calm in their storm, the logic in their spiral, the softness in their sharp edges, and no matter how hard they try to replace it, it doesn't work. Because it's not about finding someone new. It's about knowing that the person they lost was the only one who truly saw them and still stayed. And what makes it worse is that you didn't beg. You didn't make a scene. You didn't break things on the way out. You left gently, with dignity, with grace. You left in a way that left them with nothing to hold on to but their own guilt. That's the haunting part. Because if you'd exploded, if you'd cursed them out, if you'd chased them, at least they'd have something to blame. But all you left them with was a mirror and silence, and both are louder than any fight could ever be. They see your growth now. They hear about your peace, your glow, the way you're thriving without them. And every win you post is a quiet reminder that they were the one who lost, not you. Because you didn't just survive without them, you became more without them. You became someone they can't access, can't distract, can't manipulate anymore. And that truth, it doesn't just sting, it burns. They try to numb it. With people, with distractions, with ego, but nothing fills the void. Because the void isn't just about what's missing, it's about what's irreplaceable. And you, my friend, are irreplaceable. They may have confused you with someone ordinary while you were near, but distance has given them clarity. Painful clarity, and that clarity has a name: you. So if you've ever doubted your impact, if you've ever wondered whether your absence meant anything, remember this: you're not just missed, you're mourned. Not with flowers or tears, but with regret. Daily, quietly, deeply. You are the thought behind their blank stares, the ache behind their cold laughter, the emptiness behind their new connections. So write it in the comments: I became the memory they can't silence, because you were never just a chapter. They keep rereading your pages, hoping they'll change, but they won't, because the story is over, and the ghost of you is still writing their ending. Stay with me, folks, because next we're going to expose how you didn't leave to punish them. You left to protect yourself, and that is what haunts them most. Let's keep going. Number 6. You didn't leave to punish, you left to protect yourself, and that's what hurts them most. The deepest pain isn't being left behind, it's realizing why you were left. They told themselves a story, a comforting one, that you left because you were weak, that you gave up, that you couldn't handle them, that you were too emotional, too dramatic, too sensitive. That's the lie they fed themselves to survive your absence. Because the truth is too raw, too real, too sharp. The truth is, you didn't walk away to punish them. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you finally started caring about yourself. You spent so long shrinking, bending, twisting your boundaries into shapes that made them comfortable. You explained yourself into exhaustion. You forgave things that should have been unforgivable. You stayed long after the love was no longer mutual, hoping, praying, believing they'd change. And when they didn't, you broke, but you broke quietly. You bled behind smiles. You suffered in silence. And when the pain became too loud to ignore, when the weight became too heavy to carry, you made the most terrifying, most powerful decision of your life. You chose you. And that, right there, is what haunts them. Because they didn't think you would. They thought you were too soft, too loyal, too in love to ever put yourself first. They thought they could keep pushing, keep taking, keep failing to show up, because that's what you'd always tolerated. You trained them, unintentionally, to believe that your love was unconditional, even when it was unreciprocated. But love, my friends, is not a free-for-all. It has limits, it has a threshold, and the day you reached yours, they didn't just lose a partner, they lost their lifeline. They didn't notice the quiet withdrawals at first, the way you stopped explaining yourself, the way your tone shifted, the way your energy began to pull back. They didn't see that you were preparing yourself to go, not to destroy them, but to save yourself. And when you finally left, they called it sudden. But it wasn't. It was slow. It was deliberate. It was 1,000 broken moments wrapped in one final goodbye. And now they're angry, not at you, but at what your silence reveals. Because your peace is proof that they were the chaos. Your glow is evidence that they were the weight, and your distance is the loudest message they've ever received, and they can't reply to it. What really breaks them isn't that you left, it's that you're okay without them. You're not chasing, you're not begging, you're not trying to fix what they shattered. You're just still, healing, quiet, unreachable, and that kills them. Because they know, deep down, they couldn't have done the same. If the roles were reversed, they'd be spiraling. But you're solid. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you chose growth instead of games. And the truth they'll never say out loud. They miss you, terribly. They miss the way you listened, the way you understood their moods before they did. They miss the way you anticipated their needs, the way you calmed their storms without needing credit. But most of all, they miss the version of themselves that only existed in your presence, because that version felt loved, cared for, seen. And now, they're surrounded by people who don't truly know them, who don't really care to, and they realize far too late that you were the difference. So many people confuse love with control. They think if you don't fight to stay, you never cared. They think silence is a game, but you weren't silent to win. You were silent to heal. And that's what they'll never understand. You didn't want revenge. You just wanted peace. And when peace meant walking away, you chose the road they never expected you to take. And now, while they sit with their regrets, their pride is at war with their longing. They want to reach out, but they don't. They want to say sorry, but they won't. Because to do that would be to admit what they've avoided all along, that you were never the problem, that it was their neglect, their inconsistency, their inability to rise to the level of your love. And that truth is far heavier than your absence. So if you've ever doubted the choice to leave, don't. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away because staying was hurting you. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself in a room where no one else is doing it for you. That's not selfish. That's survival. That's strength. Write it in the comments right now. I left to protect myself. Say it. Own it. Let the world know that your silence isn't spite, it's self-love. That your absence isn't punishment, it's preservation. That your peace isn't cold, it's a boundary, finally respected. Stay with me, folks, because next, we're stepping into the space where regret begins to rot from the inside, where they try to replace you, distract themselves, pretend it never mattered, and why none of it will ever work. The mask is slipping, and your absence is the light they can't hide from. Let's go deep. Number 7. Regret grows in silence, and they're running out of distractions. The noise they once used to drown you out is now the very silence that drowns them. At first, they smiled, laughed a little too loud, posted the stories, showed the world their version of strength. You know the type. Look at me, I'm fine without you. But my friends, that was never strength. That was a performance. A last-ditch effort to convince themselves that losing you meant nothing. But the truth waits. And regret. Regret always arrives late, but it never leaves quietly. It doesn't come all at once. It starts small, a flicker, a name they scroll past, a photo they forgot to delete, a scent that reminds them of your presence, and suddenly they're there again, not physically, but emotionally, standing in the same space where you used to hold them together, only now they're alone, and they can feel it creeping in, the truth, the consequences, the ache they swore would never touch them, and now even their distractions can't save them. You see, regret is like water in a house with cracks. You can try to block it. You can throw parties, fill your nights with noise, surround yourself with new faces who know nothing about who you used to be. But eventually, that water finds a way. It seeps through the cracks, through the silences, through the spaces you used to fill. And when it hits, it floods. They thought they could replace you, find another source of comfort, another voice that sounded like home. But nothing fits. Nothing hits the same, because you weren't a placeholder. You weren't a warm body. You were the rare kind of person who saw them, who stayed through the chaos, who knew the things they never said and never used those things to hurt them. You were the difference, and now that you're gone, the contrast is devastating. They didn't understand it then, but they do now. The way you kept showing up, the way you listened past the words, the way you stood still while they spiraled. The way your love didn't demand perfection, but simply asked for truth. They remember. And what's worse? They remember it while sitting next to people who don't even ask how their day was, who don't notice the shift in their energy, who don't care about the deeper parts of them that you navigated with ease. And now the distraction no longer distracts. The noise isn't loud enough. The smiles feel forced. And the silence they once weaponized against you, has become their punishment. Because your absence is a song they can't mute. It's a presence inside of them they can't shake. They try to pretend it's fine, that life moved on. But every time they close their eyes, they see the one person who never needed to be flashy to be felt. And the guilt. It grows, quietly, patiently. Every moment they remember what they said, what they didn't say, the way they dismissed your feelings, the way they rolled their eyes when you were trying to save the connection. They remember it all now, not from a place of pride, but from the aching space where you used to live. They thought time would make it easier, but time has only made your worth clearer, because real ones don't come around twice. Real ones don't stay waiting at a door that slams shut in their face. And now that they know what they lost, the shame sits like a stone on their chest. Heavy, suffocating, inescapable. They don't reach out, not because they don't care, but because they do. Too much. Because reaching out would mean admitting what they tried to deny, that you mattered, that they messed up, that they had gold in their hands and they dropped it thinking it was just glitter. And you're not bitter, you're just done. You stopped begging for the bare minimum. You stopped shrinking so they could feel tall. You stopped giving CPR to a relationship that was choking you instead. And that decision, that self-respect, that's the part that's destroying them now. So don't doubt the silence, my friend. Don't question whether your absence has impact. It has more impact than your words ever did, because people don't listen when you talk. They listen when you stop talking. And when you walked away with peace instead of pain, you didn't leave a hole, they discovered one. Let this be your closure. You didn't lose them. They lost the version of themselves that only existed because you were there. You brought light. You brought clarity. You brought healing. And they couldn't hold it. So now they sit with what they kept, pride. But pride doesn't hug you at night. It doesn't ask how you're doing. It doesn't fight for you. It just keeps you company while you drown in your own silence. So write it down below. My peace was the price. Say it loud. Say it for you. Say it for every time you chose to walk away from what was slowly breaking you. And if this message reminded you of your worth, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And now they know. Now they feel it. Now they regret it. But you, my friend, you rise.